I'm Nadia Hayes, 36. I found out I was removed from the family business not in a meeting, not even with a call, but through a press release that listed everyone except me. I was halfway through presenting our IPO roadmap slides crisp, projections sharp, investors attentive when the notification pinged at the corner of my screen. I should have ignored it. I always do during high-stakes meetings. But something about the sender's name froze my breath. Hayes Family Office. Subject line 40th Anniversary Celebration. Core family only. Core family. I clicked it. Curiosity or old wounds, I don't know which took over. There it was. A neatly designed invitation to an event at the Ritz-Carlton in Boston, the 40th anniversary of Hayes Group, my family's multi-billion-dollar real estate empire. Scroll down there was the seating chart. Amanda, my older sister, placed squarely at the center table next to our father, our uncle, our cousins, their spouses. My name absent, not even as a +1, not even as a footnote. Miss Hayes, one of our board members, prompted gently. Yes, I said, recovering quickly, eyes snapping back to the deck on the projector. Let's continue, but I wasn't really there. Instead, I was 11 again, hiding in the guest room with a paperback while Amanda charmed donors at our parents' benefit gala. I was 16 winning the state math championship while Amanda modeled debutante gowns in New England Lifestyle magazine. I was 21 graduating summa cum laude, while Amanda's B- average got a private dinner at the yacht club. I was always the smart one. Said in the same tone, someone might say the intense one or the complicated one. I didn't speak much at parties. I didn't flirt with charm or wear pearl studs. I asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. I challenged Amanda's stories when they bent the truth too far. Nadia's brilliant, they'd say, but she doesn't really fit. Amanda fit? Amanda always fit. She was the smile in the family Christmas photo. I was the one they had to coax to soften your expression. The meeting wrapped up. I nodded, thanked the investors, delegated follow-ups. Then I walked straight to the balcony of our downtown office, the Puget Sound glimmering below like it didn't care what a last name meant. I pulled out my phone and dialed my attorney. Claire, I said when she answered, I need to initiate a formal review of all financial entanglements I have with the Hayes Group. I want out. There was a pause. Are you sure? I've been sure for 20 years. I replied, I just didn't act on it. Until now. Because I wasn't just excluded from a dinner. I'd been strategically erased. And it wasn't about hurt feelings, it was about power, legacy, optics. They'd built a frame of who the family was supposed to be. And for as long as I could remember, I had been edited out of that picture. Now, I was done waiting to be invited in. Now, I'd build my own frame. I'd always known I was on the outside looking in, but that email made it official. And somehow, knowing it wasn't just in my head brought a strange kind of peace. Painful, yes, but clean. I wasn't imagining things. They'd drawn the lines, and I simply wasn't inside them. Liam had seen it long before I could admit it to myself. He wasn't from money. He didn't go to prep school. Didn't know the difference between a winter gala and a donor's brunch. He was the kind of man who read books slowly, who fixed things around my apartment without being asked, who remembered the names of my interns and asked how they were doing. Liam was the first person who ever saw me as enough without the high heels, the pedigree, the legacy name, and that, to my family, made him inconvenient. The first and last time I brought him to a family function was my father's 65th birthday. It was held in the East Ballroom of the Carlington, one of those hotels with more mirrors than people. Amanda greeted us in a champagne-colored dress that shimmered like an award show. She kissed Liam's cheek like he was a waiter delivering drinks. Then she turned to me and said, Nadia, I love that you're not afraid of a bold cut, eyeing my navy pantsuit like it was made of burlap. We were seated at table 12, not even close to the stage, let alone the family. Liam pulled my chair out for me while I scanned the seating arrangement. Amanda, of course, was at table 1 flanked by state officials, 2 CEOs, and our parents. Across the room, I could see cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, raising glasses in toasts I hadn't been invited to give. Dinner was worse. My mother stopped by once, in a swirl of perfume and critique. Darling, she said to Liam, smiling with that polished chill she'd perfected. Have you ever considered doing a business degree? I think an MBA could really elevate your trajectory. Liam blinked, caught somewhere between amusement and discomfort. I'm pretty happy building educational software that helps kids in underfunded districts, he said, not missing a beat. She nodded as if he'd admitted to collecting bottle caps. Of course, but long term, you'll want to think about growth. I felt a prickle in my chest. He's already grown. Mother, fully formed and rather accomplished. If you take a moment to ask about it, she tilted her head. I'm sure he is. Dear, I just meant well. Next to you. It's a little unbalanced. Don't you think I didn't answer? I couldn't, not without making a scene. And scenes, in our family, were reserved for Amanda's wedding photos and quarterly board presentations, not emotions. Liam smiled through it. That night, back at the hotel, I collapsed onto the edge of the bed, kicked off my heels, and asked him, do you ever feel like you're an exhibit at one of these things? Like, you're not a person to them, just a message. He sat beside me, untying his tie with practiced ease. Oh, absolutely. He said, tonight I was Exhibit B evidence that Nadia isn't playing by the rules. I'm sorry. I whispered, don't be. He looked at me seriously. I choose you. Not your last name. Not their empire. Just you. That moment stayed with me longer than any birthday toast or family portrait ever had. It was the night I stopped defending them to myself, stopped pretending they didn't mean what they meant. Because here's the truth. My family only ever loved people who mirrored them. Amanda was their reflection, golden, obedient, ambitious in the exact shape they understood. I was other, efficient, sharp, not interested in country clubs or donor lists. And Liam wasn't even in the script. He was the wild card they couldn't spin. I'd spent years hoping they'd eventually see us both as worthy. That night, I stopped waiting. A week later, Amanda sent a message. Sorry about Mom's comment. You know how she is. No ownership, no apology. Just smooth denial, the way we were all trained. I replied. Liam's not the one who should be embarrassed. You all are. I never heard back, but I didn't need to. Liam and I built a different rhythm after that. More dinners at home. More long walks where we didn't have to explain ourselves. Fewer holidays trying to fit into a picture that never had space for me. They'd drawn the frame. I just stopped standing in front of it. Liam had chosen me, not my last name, and that choice had slowly given me the strength to choose myself, too. I didn't need their validation anymore. But what I hadn't yet realized was how far my family had gone to keep me tethered, even as they pushed me out. It started with a routine internal audit at my startup. Monica, our head of finance, stopped by my office one afternoon with a puzzled look and a folder in her hand. Nadia, can I ask you something? Odd? I nodded, setting aside the UX review I was buried in. There's a loan document tied to one of our early funding rounds, she said, flipping open the file. It lists you as a co-guarantor on a $2.2 million secured note. It's not from us, it's external. But it's been flagged as part of a cross-holding liability that might affect future valuations. I blinked. What entity issued its Central Bay Capital? It's connected to Hayes Group through a joint collateral agreement. My chest tightened. I never signed any such agreement. Monica turned the document toward me. Then you'll want to see this. My name was there, in black ink. My signature, or something like it, scrawled across the bottom line. It was familiar. Too familiar. But not mine. I stared at it at the flat loops, the awkward tail on the H in Hayes, the absence of the subtle rightward tilt I'd had in my writing since college. That's not my signature, I said, quietly but firmly. Do you want me to escalate it? Not yet. I said, let me look into this first. I spent the next 2 hours going through my personal financial records, legal folders, and archived emails. I dug up everything from the last 5 years, looking for any paperwork I might have missed, any e-signature request, any loan documentation. Nothing. But the real alarm bells rang when I dug into the shared directories from my old consulting days specifically from the 6 months I spent advising Hayes Group's Boston expansion strategy. That's when I found 2 more documents, one for a revolving line of credit, another for a short-term equipment loan, both bearing my name, both with that same almost mine signature. My stomach dropped, not just because the forgery was clumsy, but because it was strategic. Someone had used my name, my financial credibility, to secure funding they couldn't have otherwise obtained. I called Claire, my attorney. She listened silently as I laid out each document, each signature, each date. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. "Nadia, this isn't just unethical, it's criminal." "I know. Are you ready to take legal action? I don't want to destroy anyone," I said, "but I'm not going to let them keep using me like this. I'm not even part of the damn company." Claire's voice softened. "You've already been cut out emotionally. Now you're being used financially. That's not just betrayal, it's exploitation." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "What's the first step?" "Send a formal revocation of guarantee for any outstanding financial instruments tied to your name. We'll file it with Central Bay and any affiliated lenders." I paused. "That's going to trigger a clause in the loan agreement." "Right. Yes. They'll have 30 days to replace your guarantee. Otherwise, the loan could be recalled." "Do it," I said within 24 hours. The notice was filed. The next morning, Hayes Group's stock dipped 14%. That might not have meant much to outsiders. It could have looked like market noise, maybe an earnings rumor, but I knew exactly why it had happened. And so did my family. The calls started by mid-morning, first from Amanda, then my father's executive assistant, then my uncle, the CFO, then my father himself. 17 missed calls before noon. My voicemail filled up within hours. I didn't answer a single one. By 3 p.m., the press had picked it up. Hayes Group faces collateral scramble after withdrawal of key guarantor. They didn't name me, yet, but I knew that headline wasn't just about money. It was about power slipping through their hands and returning to mine. That night, I sat on the balcony with Liam, watching the Seattle skyline flicker like stars that had chosen to come closer to Earth. "They're going to come for you," he said softly. I nodded. "Let them." "You ready for the first time in my life?" I said. "I don't just feel ready. I feel free. They were going to come for me." Liam was right, but I hadn't expected them to walk through the front doors of my company uninvited. It was 2 days after the stock dip. I was reviewing Q2 forecasts with our finance team when Kelsey, my assistant, knocked on the glass wall of the conference room. She mouthed the words, "Your father and sister are here." I stood up slowly, straightening my blazer. "Do they have an appointment?" I asked as I stepped out into the hallway. "No. They said it was urgent." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They're in the lobby. Security already checked them in, but they're refusing to leave until they speak to you." I glanced down the hall. Through the frosted glass of the reception area, I could make out Amanda's sleek silhouette and my father's unmistakable posture arms, crossed, foot tapping in impatient rhythm. "Tell them I'm in back-to-back meetings for the rest of the day," I said calmly. "If they don't have a scheduled time, they're not seeing me." Kelsey hesitated. "Should I call building security?" "Yes," I said, "and please inform them they're welcome to request a formal meeting through counsel, just like any other external party." Her eyebrows rose slightly, but she nodded and walked off. I returned to the conference room and continued the meeting without mentioning a word. My voice never wavered. My hands didn't shake. But inside, something was burning equal parts adrenaline, fury, and something darker. Grief. Maybe. Later that afternoon, after the last client left and the sun began to fall behind the skyline, I opened my inbox to find a single unread email from Amanda. Subject: I should have said something sooner. The message was short, just one sentence. "I'm sorry I stayed silent for so long." I stared at it, reread it, then read it again. Amanda, the golden child, the polished one, the face of every family brochure, was apologizing before I could even reply. Another email arrived, from the same address. This one had no message body, only an attachment titled Dad HD Archive Zip. I downloaded the file. Inside was a folder containing dozens of scanned documents, loan agreements, notarized statements, internal memos. Many of them bore my forged signature. Others were emails between my father and his CFO, discussing how to expedite Nadia's involvement quietly and avoid notifying her directly to prevent unnecessary tension. One email, dated 2 years ago, was the worst. Her credit history is strong enough. We don't need her consent if we route it through the Florida subsidiary. Just match the signature from the 2019 file. She won't check, it's not like she's ever asked before. I closed my laptop and stared at the wall. The betrayal had layers. My name wasn't just used, they'd practiced, rehearsed, coordinated. My financial identity had been a tool, passed around boardrooms I was never invited into. And Amanda she'd known, at least part of it. She had seen, and for years, she had said nothing. I should have been furious. But I wasn't. Not yet. I was something worse, ready. The next morning, I walked into the office early. I wore a black suit, no accessories, no makeup except for red lipstick, my own silent armor. I called Claire and asked her to prepare a formal statement of disassociation from all Hayes Group interests and responsibilities, including the removal of my name from any and all legal documents where I was listed without consent. Then I sent an email. One sentence, as clean and brutal as Amanda's had been. If you want to talk, it'll be in a legal setting. Let me know what date works for you. No one replied, but at 11:42 a.m., Kelsey appeared at my door again. They're back, she said quietly. Your father, Amanda, and their general counsel. They said they want to resolve this internally. I looked out the glass wall of my office. Tell them I'll see them in the boardroom in 20 minutes. She nodded. When I entered the room, they were already seated. My father at the head of the table, Amanda beside him, and a man in a gray suit I vaguely recognized from old Hayes press conferences. Thank you for agreeing to meet, my father said, voice tight. I sat across from them, placing a slim leather folder on the table without opening it. This is not a negotiation. If you're here to ask me to reverse my revocation, I suggest we skip the theatrics. He cleared his throat. Nadia, we're a family. We made some decisions under pressure, but this scorched earth response is disproportionate. Amanda flinched slightly, but stayed quiet. I didn't start a fire. I replied, I just stopped pretending we weren't standing in one. His jaw clenched. Do you understand the damage you've done to our reputation? I understand exactly what you've done to mine. He opened a file of his own. We're prepared to offer you a seat on the advisory board, equity in the Florida project, public acknowledgement. We don't have to make this ugly. Already is, I said flatly. And let's be honest, this isn't about family. It's about liability. Amanda finally spoke. Nadia, I know I should have said something. I didn't know how much they'd involved you. I only found out the full extent when I saw the archive. I turned to her. Why now? She swallowed. Because you were right to walk away, and because I'm not sure I can keep sitting at a table where silence is currency. I held her gaze. For a moment, I saw not the rival of my childhood, but a woman cracking under the same weight I'd spent my life carrying alone. I stood. This meeting is over. I said. My father rose too. If you go public, I won't. I cut him off. Not yet, but I've removed myself from your reach, from your paperwork, from your picture. There's nothing left to threaten. I walked out, heels striking the tile like punctuation marks. No one followed me. I walked out of that boardroom and didn't look back. Not because I was done, but because I needed time. Time to breathe. Time to decide whether closure meant confrontation or simply walking away for good. 2 days later, Amanda asked for a meeting. Just the three of us. She said, no lawyers, no pretense. I agreed, but only on neutral ground. The private lounge at the Avery Hotel was quiet, opulent in a minimalist way. No family portraits on the wall. No legacy to suffocate beneath. Just soft chairs, filtered sunlight, and 3 crystal glasses of untouched water waiting on the table. They were already seated when I walked in. Amanda stood as I approached. My father remained seated, hands folded, face unreadable. I took the chair opposite them and placed a slim folder in front of me. No small talk, no forced smiles, only silence. Then I opened the folder. Inside were copies of the 3 forged loan agreements, side by side with samples of my real signature. There were screenshots of internal Hayes Group emails, proof of fund routing through a Florida subsidiary under my name. There was a forensic handwriting analysis I'd had done just in case this ever became a courtroom matter. I slid the folder forward. Explain. My father picked up the first page. His eyes scanned quickly, then slowed. He looked older than I remembered, gray hair thinning at the temples, skin around his mouth drawn tighter than before. I see, he said, setting the page down. You've done your homework. This isn't homework, I said evenly. It's my name, my financial future, my legal risk, all leveraged without my consent. He sighed through his nose. You always had the cleanest credit score. No debt, no liabilities. It made sense. It made sense to commit fraud. Amanda flinched. My father didn't. It was a temporary solution during a volatile expansion period. We had to move quickly. Our internal models projected we'd have the capital within 90 days. You were overseas. There wasn't time to call me. I cut in. Email me, ask. He looked at me, then really looked. You wouldn't have said yes. You're right, I said I wouldn't have. A long silence stretched between us, thick and hot. You should be grateful, he finally said. You helped your family weather a crisis. We didn't let you suffer for it. No harm was done. I almost laughed. No harm. You used me as a silent investor in a business I was never allowed to touch. You sat me at the kids' table at every event. You excluded me from the board, the family photos, the public narrative. But when you needed a financial parachute, suddenly I was essential. My voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. Amanda sat with her hands in her lap, eyes cast down. She hadn't spoken yet. Why her, I asked, turning to her. Why did you back this? Why stay quiet? I didn't back it. She said softly, I didn't know the full extent. Not at first, but you knew something. She nodded. Then why? Because if I questioned it, I'd lose my seat at the table too, she said. Her voice was flat, hollow. And for a long time, that meant everything to me. I believed her. It didn't excuse it, but it explained it. This is why I left, I said quietly. Not because of Liam, not because of politics, but because my place in this family was always transactional. My father shifted. So what now? You want an apology, a press release, a check. I don't want anything. I said, I came here to say it to your faces. I'm done. He frowned. Done. I've signed a full disassociation from all Hayes Group contracts, guarantees, and financial instruments. I've notified Central Bay. I've alerted my legal team. And I've retained the right to pursue charges for identity fraud if this continues. My father's nostrils flared. You would destroy everything we've built over a few signatures. No, I said, you already did that. I'm just removing my name from the rubble. Amanda looked up at me. Nadia, I don't want this to be the last time we talk. I nodded. Then change something. Not for me, for yourself. My father pushed his chair back and stood. This is vindictive, he said. You always took things personally. This is personal, I replied, rising to meet his gaze. And I'm not vindictive. I'm just finished being useful to people who never saw me as family until it was convenient. He opened his mouth to speak, then stopped. His jaw tightened. His posture faltered for just a second. I'm leaving, I said. Not just this meeting. All of it. The legacy. The name. The narrative you crafted where I was always the footnote. Amanda stood too. Wait, just one thing. I turned. I know it's too late, she said. But I wish I had protected you. I wish I had told you earlier. I saw it, and I chose silence. I can't undo it, but I can change what I do next." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not with words. Instead, I nodded once and walked toward the door. No threats, no dramatics, just closure. I left them there in the hotel lounge, surrounded by quiet wealth and the echo of everything we'd never say again. 3 days after that final meeting, I deleted my father's number. Not out of spite, just clarity. There was nothing left to say and nothing I needed to hear. Some silences are heavier than words, but this one felt light, clean. Like the end of a storm you didn't know you'd been carrying for decades. 3 months passed. The world spun forward. I stood at the edge of a rooftop terrace in downtown San Francisco, the late afternoon sun casting amber across the skyline. A photographer adjusted her lens while a stylist fussed with my collar. I was being profiled for Wired Women, recognized as one of the year's 10 most influential tech leaders. The cover story was titled, "The Architect of Her Own Empire." No mention of Hayes Group, no legacy reference, no footnote tracing me back to anyone else's vision. Just my name, my work, my voice. When the shoot ended, I stepped out of the frame and checked my phone. There was a single message from Liam Dinner's Almost Ready. "Bring that magazine cover smile home with you." He was waiting at the apartment, apron dusted in flour, a half-finished risotto simmering on the stove. I walked in, kissed him lightly on the cheek, and dropped the magazine on the kitchen island. He glanced down, then up. "She looks powerful," he said. "She is," I replied, taking off my heels, and free. Later that week, he proposed. We were on a weekend getaway in Napa Valley. Sunset poured across the vineyards in molten gold. Liam knelt in the soft grass, the ring box shaking slightly in his hands. "You don't need to change," he said, voice low but steady. "You already are the legacy." I didn't cry because I was overwhelmed. I cried because, for once, I wasn't. Saying yes felt like breathing. Amanda sent a handwritten note when she heard the news. No flourish. Just one line: "I'd be honored to stand beside you, not as a sister of convenience, but of choice." The invitation list was small, focused, real. A week before the wedding, my mother called. Not to apologize. She simply said, "I heard. I'd like to be there. Not as your father's wife, not as anyone's representative, just your mother." I didn't promise anything. I just listened. And when the call ended, I felt no anger. Just the stillness that follows when you've stopped expecting someone to become who they never were. On the morning of the ceremony, I stood in front of the full-length mirror in our apartment. My dress was simple, clean lines, no embellishment. My reflection stared back not with fragility, but calm. Amanda helped zip me up. She didn't cry. Neither did I. We didn't need to. Some things are too quietly sacred for spectacle. "You look like yourself," she whispered. I smiled. Finally, the ceremony was held in a converted greenhouse, sunlight filtering through the glass, ivy trailing the rafters, no stage, no spotlight, just a circle of chairs, friends, chosen family, the kind you build when the old framework doesn't fit. My father wasn't there. He didn't call. He didn't write. But I wasn't watching for him. As Liam reached for my hand, as we stood before the people who mattered, I realized the weight I used to carry was no longer mine. It never had been. They'd handed it to me young, called it duty, called it loyalty, and I had carried it because I thought it meant love. It didn't. I had mistaken proximity for belonging, approval for affection, silence for stability. But none of that was true. What was true was this: I was not the person they had left out of the frame. I was the person who had built a new one. For a long time, I believed my value could only be confirmed by those who denied it. I bent, I complied, I waited to be seen, But worth isn't granted, it's recognized. And recognition doesn't always come from where you want it. Sometimes, it comes from the quiet voice inside you that says enough. I've stopped justifying my seat. I've stopped seeking a chair at a table that only had room for the obedient version of me. Instead, I built my own table, the kind where truth sits comfortably, where boundaries are not punishable, where love isn't conditional, as I step forward into a new name, a new home, a new life. I carry no bitterness, only the knowledge that my dignity was never theirs to give or take. Some doors don't need slamming, they just need to be closed. I reached for the doorknob, glanced once behind me, not with longing, but with certainty, then stepped into the hallway, straight-backed, unapologetic, ready, because real worth doesn't require recognition, and dignity cannot be stolen.